And, you look at kind of some of the hires before this, McElwain, to me, that was kind of a head scratcher in my opinion. Dan Mullen, when they first hired him, to me, I was kind of skeptical about it. And, as time went on, maybe, he could do some things at Florida. But it was one of those things with Mullen. He was good, but he never lived up to his potential. And with Napier, I feel like you said this is a home run hire. I feel like this is just like a bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, grand slam type of hire for like with Napier coming to Gainesville. I just feel like this is the best possible guy that can get out there. I know some people maybe wanted Lane Kiffin or whoever, it may be, but you mentioned, kind of like the CEO approach with Napier, kind of like a Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, coming from the Nick Saban tree, coming, from Dabo Swinney and Clemson as well. He's been with the top premier coaches in college football right now. So he's one of the best group of five coaches. He was one of the best group of five recruiters. That was something else kind of, towards the end of Mullen, lots of people were just getting frustrated with recruiting. That was kind of a downfall when he was with Gainesville. Had 3 straight seasons having the best recruiting class in his conference, which was the Sun Belt. And there's really not much to dislike from Napier. I said last week, the only, the only thing I did not like was him not really having that Power 5 experience as a head coach. But when he's been everywhere else, like at Alabama and at Clemson, it's kind of, he's basically been there. He's not been, their head coach. I feel like Napier, though, it's so much different from those two hires like Mullen and McElwain. It just extra like potential and, the energy that he's going to bring in Gainesville is just much different than, those other hirings. To me, this is the best possible choice Florida could have got. And you mentioned with Kelly, if that was true, I'm really glad they shot that down, because if they would have got Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, I would have been so ticked off. But this is, it's such a great hire. You see some of these people who might be, a casual watcher of college football. Oh, you got some guy from Louisiana. Why would you not get some guy from, for example, Lincoln Riley or something like that? The potential that Napier has, I feel like his potential is better than the Brian Kelly. I think it's better than a Kiffin, because I just don't think that would have worked out. I feel like Napier, give him a couple years, I think Florida could be, I'm not going to say, national championship contenders, but I think they're going to be right where they were, honestly, last season. One of the best teams in the country. I'm really, really excited for this. This was the best possible decision the Gators could have made by hiring Billy Napier.
Yeah, one more thing, and then I'll let us move on. But the biggest thing, it's like, yeah, Florida possibly could have gone after Lincoln Riley. I don't know whether he had interest in Florida or not, but just as an example, or accepted Brian Kelly for that matter, someone like that, they're going to demand, top dollar to begin with. Billy Napier's in a position where he can't really demand that, but whatever Florida is willing to meet him at is good for both parties. So I think from a money standpoint, they can pay him and allot the money that he's really wanting for his staff, because I think that's more important to him than anything, and I think that says a lot about his character and everything. So Florida's going to be able to pour a lot more money into not only the coordinators and the position coaches, but one thing that makes Billy Napier so different from a lot of coaches, but especially a lot of young coaches like himself, as he's only 41 years old, is his support staff. So what Billy Napier wants to do is build the best, one of the biggest and best support staffs in all of college football, but more specifically in the SEC, because he understands that if you don't do that, especially in the SEC, it's recruit or die, basically. And that was something that Mullen really didn't understand, surprisingly. So to be able to compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas, this is part of his, what he calls the process. And, this is what makes Billy Napier so special to, and that's really in other people's words, but they say that that's why he's so perfect for this job. Is like I said, he checks off a lot of boxes, but his level of understanding is just off the charts, and he wants to build that support staff, much like Alabama and Georgia have. And surprisingly, I didn't know this, but Georgia actually has the biggest recruiting support staff with all those analysts and that kind of thing in the entire SEC, followed by Alabama. So it's kind of clear to see why Georgia has kind of this year at least overtaken Nick Saban in the SEC. Well, I guess we'll find out on Saturday, but as from a recruiting standpoint, has kind of overtaken Nick Saban in recruiting because of the staff that Kirby Smart has put together. And so Billy Napier understands that this is what he has to do, and he trusts in his process and everything like that. And I think that getting a guy like Brian Kelly or Lincoln Riley just kind of handcuffed you in ways that most people don't really understand, whether it be from a money aspect, and just I don't know if a guy like Brian Kelly would be able to get what he wants and still put together the appropriate pieces that need to be put in place at Florida. And it's not just on the one head coach. It's kind of stuff that has built up since, say, the Urban Meyer days, because they have let things go as far as facilities and stuff like that. So, Florida's in the process of playing catch up, to these other schools from a facility standpoint, and, from just overall, a culture and everything within their program. So I think that a guy like Billy Napier is willing to kind of go through that rebuilding process. And I think that he was willing to do it the way that, well, I don't want to say the way that Florida wanted, because I think it's his vision, but I think that Florida was comfortable with what, each party wanted. And I think that I trust the process that they have enough faith in Billy Napier to get the job done. So, it's early, he was just hired this past week, but we'll see in 3 to 4 years really what this thing looks like. And, hopefully everything that I'm saying right now really translates over that time, and Florida becomes a powerhouse once again.
And, you mentioned rebuilding, which is really interesting, because you look at Lincoln Riley, he never really had the rebuild, when he was with Oklahoma, because Stoops already made them to one of the best teams in the Big 12.
Right.
Look at Brian Kelly. When he came to be the next, head coach of Notre Dame wasn't bad. They might not be exceeding expectations for what their program and everything like that, but they weren't bad. It's not like they're, coming into this, dumpster fire, university. When, Billy Napier comes into Louisiana has been really, really good the past several seasons. They weren't really good when he took over, and he builds them into having 3 straight 10-win seasons. So he's not unfamiliar with having a rebuild process. He's already done it, with Louisiana. So what's stopping him from doing it again at Florida, which I think he's perfectly capable of doing. And something else with Napier, you mentioned he's not going to be making the money like Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly, which honestly is a really, really good thing, because let's say if Florida would have considered a Brian Kelly, a Lincoln Riley, a Lane Kiffin, that is, to me, I feel like that's really, really risky, because the money is going to be far more than what Napier will be getting with Gainesville, and with, the star power name. Lincoln Riley's been one of the better head coaches in the college football ever since he's been the head coach of Oklahoma. Lane Kiffin, I said it last week, I think he's overrated, but he's done good at Ole Miss. He was good at FAU. Brian Kelly I think he's also a little bit overrated as well, but he's done good with Notre Dame. When you have these top premier coaches, they're going to be getting paid a super amount, like we've already seen with Kelly and Riley's contracts. When you look at Billy Napier, who's not going to be getting nearly as much, the expectations with Napier is much more interesting. And I feel like with Napier, it's I know it sounds kind of crazy. I think it's the safest out of those 4 names I mentioned, because it is extremely low risk, and the reward is literally possibly being national champions. Because with Lincoln Riley, Kelly, Kiffin, that is a high risk, because you're paying top dollar. If you don't win at least one championship, let's say in a 4 or 5 year period, there's a chance. There could be a buyout happening with those guys. But with Napier, who's not getting near as much money, there's not that reward, not that risk like a Riley, who really, if he had like a 10-year contract with USC, if he didn't get if he had a 10-year contract with Florida, if he didn't win like 2 national championships, I mean, obviously you'd be happy with one, but the top dollar that he's getting, it kind of be disappointing, honestly. But with Napier, the way less money he's getting to be the Gators head coach, and him not being that star power guy like Kiffin and those other guys, I really feel like can kind of benefit Florida because, like I said, I feel like it's extremely low risk, but the reward is really, the sky's the limit for the reward, honestly.